This is Miss Humbert here, and today we're going to be doing Unit 1, Notes 5. So we're going to actually take a look at graphing inequalities. And now we're going to be graphing inequalities that have two letters in them. So it's not like what we did in Notes 2. It's actually going to be a little bit more complex than that. And so something I'd like to do before we get started is just kind of review how we graphed lines. Okay, so when we graphed a line, remember that this number that's being added on at the end here, that's our y-intercept. So we're crossing at 5. And so since the slope is -3, that's the same as -3 over 1. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw the line, just as so. So then what we're going to do now is we have -x plus 3y is equal to 6. So now what I want to do is I want to add x to both sides. So then I get 3y is equal to 6 plus x. Remember, when it's in standard form, we need to convert it into slope-intercept form by solving for y. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. And when I divide both sides by 3, first of all, x divided by 3 is really the same as 1/3 x. 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 2. Since my slope is 1/3, that means I'm going up 1 and then over 1, 2, 3. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect the dots just like so. And I have a beautiful, almost straight line. So this is where it gets confusing. On number 3, you have x is equal to 5. So when you have that, what that means, if it's just an x and there's no y, that means you're going to have a vertical line. Okay? If you had just a y, it would be horizontal. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the x-axis as a number line. You're going to find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the x-axis. And then you're just going to draw a vertical line directly through that 5 on the x-axis. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at just a review of what those meant. This is going to come in really handy on note 6 when you start doing word problems with this stuff. So I want you guys just to keep this chart in mind and maybe even have notes 2 out along with this notes once you start working on your practice sheet. So let's take a look at our steps. And we're going to kind of do number 4 and look at our steps at the same time. So our first step, if it'll let me grab it, our first step is to put the equation in slope-intercept form. Is it in slope-intercept form? Absolutely. But take a second to write that down on your steps, okay, so that you have it if you get stuck. Our second one is to decide what type of line to make. Okay, so we're going to decide what type of line to make. So if it's a dotted line, if there's no line underneath the inequality, it's going to be dotted. It's a solid line if there's a line underneath the equality. So for number 4, we are actually going to have a solid line. Okay, then let's go ahead and let's take a look at step number 3. So for step number 3, we need to decide where to shade. So I like to look at an inequality as an alligator. So if the alligator, like here, is eating the y, if the alligator's eating the y, then you're going to shade up. If it's not eating the y, you're going to shade down. So in number 4, it's not eating the y, so we're going to be shading down. Okay, so now once we've made all of those decisions, we can finally graph that inequality. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're crossing the y-axis at 3. And then our slope is 2 and over 1. Now I had decided that I was going to have a solid line. So I'm going to be connecting those two dots with a solid line. Then I need to decide where to shade. Well, I decided that I need to shade down. So here's what we're going to do is put your pencil on a spot on the line, okay? So I pick a spot on the line, and then from that line, I just shoot down. So wherever my pencil lands, that's the spot that I'm going to shade in. That's that down portion. And don't worry, we're going to do a lot of practice with this. So just shade it in so that it's very obvious to me what has been shaded. So let's take a look at number 5. First question, is it in slope-intercept form? Why, yes, sir, it is. Next question, do we need a dotted or a solid line? Well, there's no line underneath, so this puppy needs to be dotted. Then, do we shade up or do we shade down? Well, I see that the alligator is facing the Y, so we're going to shade, if I could type what I'm thinking, that would be awesome. We're going to shade up, okay? So we're going to shade up. There it is. So we're crossing the y-axis at a -6. So we're crossing right there. And since it's just an x, that's the same as 1x. So our slope is going to be 1 over 1. So we're going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Now I decided that I need a dotted line. So I'm going to be connecting this puppy with a dotted line. Here's a trick. If you work in pencil, let's say you forget to make the dotted line, you can just go through and erase little parts of it to make it dotted later. That's just a great tip of using pencils, right? So now I decided I'm going to shade up. So I'm going to pick a spot on the line, and I'm just going to go directly up. And where my pencil landed when I did that, that's where I need to shade in. So this right here is where I am shading in. And oh my, is it beautiful. Okay, so let's take a look at some more problems. So number 6, yay, it gives us a hint. It's a solid line. Okay, it's already in slope-intercept form, and we know we need to use a solid line. Then I noticed that the alligator is opening up towards the Y, which means I need to shade up. So I'm going to cross the y-axis at 2, and then my slope is -4, which is the same as -4 over 1. So I'm going down 4 and then over 1. I'm going to connect those two with that solid line, and then I'm going to shade up. So I'm going to pick a spot, and I'm going to go up from it. Please, can I go up from it? Maybe? Up? And that's where I'm going to shade. It's right in that area. It did not like me doing that, did it? It's like, wow, this is too much shading. I can't even handle this. So let's go ahead now, and oh, there we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 7. So there's no line underneath the inequality, so that means we're going to have a dotted line. And then I notice that it's facing towards the y, so we're shading up. So let's go ahead and graph that. Our y-intercept is -2. Okay, so we're crossing the y-axis at a -2. And then our slope is 1/2, so we're going up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So then it's going to be dashed, like so. So then I want to pick a spot on that line and I want to go up. And where my pencil lands, that's where I'm going to shade. So let's take a look at number 8. So it says, look at that scared baby. Uh-oh, these are in standard form. Well, we need to solve for y then. So first thing I'm going to do is subtract this 3x over to the other side. So then I get -2y is greater than -3x minus 6. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by -2 to solve. Now, if you paid a lot of attention during notes 2, you have alarm bells going off saying, hey, I just divided by a negative number, so I better make sure I flip that symbol. So here's a trick from me to you. Please make sure you simplify it into slope-intercept form before you decide where to shade, because it could change throughout your solving. So definitely keep that in mind. So now at the end of this, there's still no line underneath, so I'm going to have a dotted line. But now it's facing away from the y, so I need to shade down. So we're crossing the y-axis at 3, and then we're going up 3 and over 1, because our slope is 3 over 1. So I'm going to have my dotted line, and then I need to shade down from it. So I'm going to pick a spot, and I'm going to go down. And where my pencil lands, that's what I'm shading in. All right, now let's take a look at what is that, number 9 for you guys? Okay, so let's take a look at number 9. So I'm going to start by subtracting 5x from both sides. Again, we can't add the -5x and the 10 because one has an x and the other doesn't. Okay, just like so. So then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So then I get y is less than or equal to -5 over 2x plus 5. So the fraction 5, 2 cannot be reduced. So this is my slope-intercept form. Things that I noticed, there's a line underneath the inequality, so I need a solid line. It's facing away from the y, so I need to shade down. So I'm crossing the y-axis at 5, and then my slope is -5 over 2. So I'm going to go down 5 and over 2. So I'm going to have a solid line between those two, and I need to shade down. So I'm going to pick a spot on here, and I need to go down or under that line. Go ahead, I can shade that in, and it's beautiful and magical, and I love it. Okay, so let's take a look at number 10. Again, we need to do some solving. So for this one, all I have to do to get it in slope-intercept form actually is to subtract 3x over to the other side. So then I get the 3x here and then the minus 6 here. Again, not adding those terms together. So I'm crossing the y-axis at a negative 6. Okay? I noticed about the inequality, there's a line underneath, so I need a solid line, and it's facing the y, so I need to shade up or above. Okay, so if I go down negative 3, I'm off the graph. So what I can do is go up and left. So going up and left is the same as going down and right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up 3 and left 1. And then I'm going to draw in that solid line. And then I need to shade up. So I'm going to pick a spot on the line and go up. And this is where I land. So I'm going to go ahead and shade that in. Taking a look, so to solve this one, all I have to do is divide both sides by negative 2. What am I dividing by? A negative. What does that mean? I better darn toot and flip that symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by a negative 2. Okay, so this is going to stay the same, or this is just going to become a y. Flipping that symbol, again, you always want to make your decisions about the inequality after you've gotten it into slope-intercept form. 4x divided by negative 2 is negative 2x. And then negative 10 divided by negative 2 is going to lead to a positive 5. So you're crossing the y-axis at 5, which is right here. And then your slope is negative 2, which is the same as negative 2 over 1. So I'm going down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. So that is going to be dashed. And you're going to shade above, because I picked a spot on line and I went up. So I'm shading in right there. So that concludes your note video. Please let me know if you need help on anything. Thanks for listening.